Well, I think we might get started. We have recorded the webinar, so we can make it available to people who are running a little bit late or who aren't able to attend today. Firstly, wanted to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we're all meeting today. For me, it's the land of the Mimiri people, and also to pay our respects to their elders past and present, and extend that respect to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. We've got a few different aspects to today's webinar. I wanted to give you a quick update on the scheme review, a governance update, give you an update on FY24 audit outcomes. Melissa's going to give an update on free riders, let you know what's happening with button batteries, material flows, and some other strategic action we've been taking. The structure of today is presentation style. You can submit a question anytime by clicking the Q&A in the top bar of your screen. You can just type your question in the column then that appears at the right. Then when we get to the end, we can answer any questions. We might pause somewhere in the middle too and just check in with you and make sure there's no burning questions. So I'm not going to do a lot on the scheme review, but I did want to give you a quick update. We gave quite an extensive update on the previous at the previous webinar, and that is available. There's a recording available there, or you can get a copy of the slides. But the stage 1 consultation process went really well. We're very pleased with the level of engagement. We had lots of people either attending face-to-face meetings or virtual meetings, and we had 58 people also attending our face-to-face forums, which were really fantastic. We've gone through, we're in the process of going through a stage 2 consultation with the collectors and recyclers. It became clear from the feedback that there were a couple of issues in particular that we needed to delve into a little bit more with them. And they were in particular looking at the processing rebates, the container subsidy, and the collection and sorting rebates, and really making sure that we were clarifying the issues. And in the case of the performance rebates, significant change. So I thought I would just quickly run you through that. I think what became really clear from the consultation process is that having just a set rate was challenging because there are different business models and different approaches to processing, even within different chemistries. And so there was a request to really look at a more performance-based approach, and a suggestion that we look at the used oil model for paying rebates. And so we have done that, and I think we're really pleased with the result. It's a completely new process based on the waste hierarchy, and really incentivising over time. We'll be able to really incentivise true circularity outcomes, and also recognise that there are, there's a whole, for any one particular battery type, there might be that whole range of solutions that might apply. We also were asked to really look at the broader impacts of processing. So there's additional performance outcomes based on environmental footprint, audit outcomes, transparency, and promotion of B-cycles. So really wanting to promote full engagement and incentivise full engagement in our shared commitments and obligations, because obviously those things around the sort of public benefit and outcomes of the scheme are absolutely linked into our ACCC authorisation and really important to us. So really wanting to make that clear and to incentivise improved performance in those spaces as well. We've been working through a completely new model. We're calling it Circularity Calculator. We met with the collectors and recyclers last week, and this was actually really well received. We are in the process of tweaking it at the moment, but the concept is definitely looking really robust. And as I mentioned, the idea is that over time we can really improve the outcomes of the scheme so that we can incentivise circularity, but also recognise where we are today and ensure that we are, are providing the right economic stimulus for. Why we're having people popping in and out? This must be a bit of a connection issue.
You're cutting up a little bit, Libby, but mostly we hear you okay.
All right, if it gets too bad, Jade, then I'll just let me know and you can talk and I'll just sit back. Yes, so recognise and support recyclers where they are today, but also incentivising improved performance over time and really looking to reduce, the low end, least preferable ends of the waste hierarchy. So we're just working through that. As I mentioned, we have, since our last scheme round of consultation, we've gone back to the board and got general support for the approach with some tweaking and inclusion of the stage 2 consultation process. We've also communicated with importers, just letting them know right now that the transition to eco-modulation is expected to begin in early July next year, so that they can start tailoring and developing the necessary systems to report on a chemistry basis. As I mentioned, we've been consulting with the collectors and recyclers. We've also submitted to government the draft stewardship rule and the draft battery rule, just by way of information to assist them as they develop their thinking around what regulation might look like. Our next, what we're kind of in the process of doing right now is finalising the cost structures in response to the stage 2 consultation. And once we've done that, we will be re-engaging with industry associations, consulting through webinars with the next round of detail, and then go back to the board. And the idea is that we are ready for reauthorisation by November, December this year. One of the key things that came out of the consultation is that there were questions regarding governance. And so I just thought I would quickly give you a bit of an update. I'm not going to read everything off the slides, but I wanted to give you a sense of the wide variety of processes and aspects of our work that is, pretty carefully governed. And just to also let you know that we do publish all of our governance documents. Oh, yeah, that's right. So all of the documents that I'm just about to quickly walk you through, you can download and review on the website. So I think that was clear to us that some people were unaware of that. So obviously, a key document is our Constitution. That totally drives the way we operate. It provides the framework for how we're administered, how the board works. It also guides us in terms of transparency around finances, what insurances we're quite required to have, and how we would wind up should that be necessary. I think one of the things it does do that's important is it identifies different membership classes, the composition of the board, the roles and appointment process. It also defines our meeting processes, and it does indeed have a very clear process for managing conflicts of interest and for dispute resolution and appeals. It is essentially our rule book for how we operate, and we take all of these things extremely seriously, and that's reflected, in the way we operate the board and other aspects of the operations. I thought it was just worth touching on the composition of the board. The board has to be more than 6, but no greater than 14. But the thing that's sort of interesting about that is that we, unlike other boards, have representation from across the supply chain, and the number and representation of different aspects of the supply chain is also governed there. So it does allow for representation across that whole supply chain, as I suggested, but also at least one independent director, an independent chair, and the CEO if the other directors agree to that. And I think that supply chain representation is really important. And we also advertise when there are vacancies. We advertised a couple of weeks ago so that new players can certainly come onto the board at any time once there is a vacancy made available. We have to have an independent chair, and there's a process that defines that as well. So that's all clearly defined. I won't go into it, but if you wanted to know more about that, it's available. It also defines tenure and appointment, and I think this is a new process that we've just been implementing for the first time. But essentially, before appointing any director, the board will and has formed a nominations committee to go through that recruitment process. And the intention there is to really ensure that we have people that have the right skills and expertise for the board. So those nominations are assessed with quite a rigorous evaluation process, and we can only elect persons or people who meet the required criteria. And then at the following general meeting, we must provide any new appointments to the members at least 21 days ahead of that, and then there is a vote to confirm those directors at those meetings. In addition to the Constitution, we also have a conflict of interest policy, and that really defines, to a large degree how the board operates, and it makes it very clear, and we've had training on this as well, that the board has to effectively identify, disclose and manage potential or perceived conflict of interests. We have a register of interests that is required to be up to date, and we check in with that every meeting. And we also have a really great and strong process for managing potential and actual conflicts of interest within board meetings. And there have been occasions where we've asked particular board members to leave if there is any perception of conflict of interest. We also have the commitment document, which you would all be aware of, but these are really important. They set out the obligations for everybody, and really it is an important document that also sets out specific obligations for everybody, including the BSC, and it really is the mechanism by which we participants, I should say, demonstrate their commitment to meeting our obligations. And we have to report back to the ACCC on these, and so it's a really important document for everybody. We also have a number of codes of practice. We have codes of practice for drop-off points. It's very specific requirements around safety and so forth there. Another one for incidental receivers, and we are currently developing one for participants in general. We have a participant confidentiality policy, and that really is applying to any information or data that we collect. It defines how we collect it, how we use it, and how we protect sensitive data and the processes that we use to do that. We also have probably the biggest document that we have is the B-Cycle Network accreditation protocols, and these really have been built from international norms that apply to e-waste management systems, and the intent there is to reflect good practice and also maximise the effectiveness of people's systems, but also to minimise duplication, since a number of our members are also in the e-waste business. It essentially sets out the obligations in a more detailed way for collectors, sorters and processors, and really sets our expectations around their capability, around safety and transparency. And that document is also a crucial one for us because it forms the basis of audits that are conducted. And there are, in each of the categories, activities that, we can look to confirm that the network is actually doing what they say they are doing. So on that note, I'm going to hand over to Jade, who's just going to give you a quick update on the outcomes of the audits that we've just produced in a report. Thanks, Jade.
Thanks, Libby. So every year we audit all of our accredited collectors, sorters, and recyclers to ensure that they are meeting our requirements, that the accreditation collectors network protocols that Libby mentioned are largest and most detailed documents, as well as a snapshot of our drop-off points to also make sure they're meeting their commitment documents. On this slide, you'll see the areas that the audit looks at, so everything from the organizational capability through to how the containers are managed, how they store batteries, transport, sort, processing, and obviously things like environmentally sound management that applies more to the recycling and processing end of a battery's value chain. We have completed many audits, which is great. In the last financial year, we completed 34 audits, of which 14 of those were based primarily on the collectors, sorters, and recyclers. The remaining were on our drop-off points, and we'll be doing more of those in the future. We published also recently a summary report looking at the first 18 months of the audit program. So that included, actually it's over 2 years, included the first part before we launched in late 2021, all of 2022, and all of 2023, as well as the first first few months of the financial year 24. So that report is available to download and peruse at your leisure. Some highlights and things that we are greatly proud of and the achievements of the program is that we're seeing a significant improvement in the number of conformances and system strengths, with over 40% during that time. We're also seeing a significant reduction in things like areas of concern, that's down 70%, as well as our non-conformances, which is down 90%. So I really strongly recommend you to review that report if you have an interest in finding out more about what items we audit and the findings from our audit program, and ways obviously that we can look to improve this in the future. Next slide, please. We've also published in this last while our B-Cycle accreditation and suspension and revocation policy. So this outlines, also available on our website for transparency purposes, the process that if we need to, unfortunately, suspend or revoke any accreditation of our participants. And really, the policy looks at things like how the audits went, if there was an intended and willful violation of our accreditation process. It defines what the grounds for a critical non-conformance might be, and also defines the process for then investigating and communicating critical non-conformances. It lays out in detail the implications of a suspension or revocation, and also as well the appeals process for those participants that would like to appeal any kind of suspension or revocation claim. That, as mentioned, is available on our website, and please reach out if you have further questions.
Thanks, Jade. Yeah, and just by way of a little bit more explanation, that policy is actually also built around international norms, and it's just good to have there in case we need it. We're hoping we never do, but it's as Jade said, published on the website. So next up, just want to introduce Melissa Twyford, who's our Manager for Member Engagement, and she's just going to give you a quick update on free riders.
Thanks, Libby. Just checking you can hear me clearly. I'm getting rid of a bit of a cold at the moment. Thank you. So thanks Jade, and thanks Libby for the previous updates. A quick overview on free riders. I wanted to begin with the great news, which is that we have some wonderful new participants, some of whom might be on the call today. And I'll just run through them in reverse order here. Charged batteries, ITW Passload and ITW Ramsett, Hygiene Systems Australia, Blackwoods, Fluoro Group and King Chrome. So welcome everybody. We're really looking forward to working with you moving forward. Next slide, please, Libby. Thank you. Just a quick overview of our existing importers and retailers. Without you, the scheme wouldn't be what it is. So thank you very much for your participation, and we look forward to expanding these numbers and details very soon with your support as well. Next slide, please, Libby. Thank you. Thank you also to our collectors and recyclers. Again, critical part of the scheme and a really important role to play in helping us move forward and working with free riders. So you can see that names up there, but also available on our website. And this just really emphasises that everybody does have a role to play in helping us address free riders. And there's a range of measures that I'll go through on the next slide as demonstrating what they are. So what is the problem with free riding? For those of you who are not aware, and I do bump into scheme participants from time to time who do require, ask for clarification on this, they are benefiting from the levies that you're currently paying. So free riders do not contribute that import levy, but participating importers do. They add to the waste stream. So their batteries are coming into the waste stream and you're, paying for them for the collection of those with your existing levies. They undermine the scheme value. So they benefit from the scheme's successes at the expense of responsible importers like yourselves. They exploit your competitive advantage as well. They are limiting the scheme revenue, a really critical piece. With more income, we can be doing a lot more with the scheme. So there's, a multitude of reasons here why it's really important for us to follow up on bringing as many free riders into the scheme as we possibly can. Next slide, please, Libby. So what does the Battery Stewardship Council, what can we do? And I've just highlighted a couple of main areas as to how we can contribute. So educating participants about their purchasing power. We advise the Minister, regularly update the Minister and the Department on where free riders are up to. Great to say that the Minister is very interested in this topic and has been very supportive in writing or communicating with what we're referring to as the top 10 free riders. And that is a moving list as they are onboarded into the scheme. So communicate the value proposition of the scheme to our participants, progressing the groundwork for a regulated environment, which Libby has spoken to previously in these updates. We allocate resources toward free rider conversion, and that is a really high priority for the work that I'm doing. We advocate also for regulatory reform to address free riders. I'm sure many of you would be aware of that piece as well. Next slide, please, Libby. Thank you. So what is your role and how can you help? Well, the great news is that we've set out a really easy to follow process here for you. And I would encourage all scheme participants who are present on the call and also be sharing these with our other importers and retailers and industry participants going forward. But I've broken it down into a very simple to follow process here. Number one is identifying who those free riders are in your supply chains. Adapting a pro forma letter which we have written that you can send out to those free riders in your supply networks. Sharing back the contact details of the decision makers in those free riding organisations is a way that I can get involved and help communicate with them as well as yourself. So that double-pronged strategy there. Draw on the expertise of your industry associations to help leverage the influence of free riders to participate. And we've seen that be very successful in some areas, but there's a huge amount of scope there to expand that. Providing a copy of the B-Cycle commitment form, which is available on the website to free riders. Some free riders don't know about B-Cycle, some do and continue to free ride. So that commitment form is a really concrete piece of evidence to demonstrate what we do and the really important reasons for them to join. Leveraging your purchasing power, can't emphasize this one enough, really important. And depending upon where you fit within the supply chain, There are, obviously different ways that you can leverage that power. Specify accreditation in your contracts, your work agreements, or your government permits. Another really powerful thing you can be doing to help incentivise free riders to join the scheme. And then regularly review. So if you're doing it at the moment, fantastic, and thank you. Please make sure that you're doing it every 3 months. And again, communication with myself or the team as to how we can help support, really, really important. Next slide, please, Libby. Thank you. Libby, can you move the slides?
Oh, sorry,
please?
I pressed
you're
the
right.
button. I don't know why it's not. Oh, there we go.
That's all right. So engaging free riders. Everybody, as I said, in the supply chain has a role to play. Battery importers notifying the BSC of free riding competitors. Some of them we are aware of and some we are yet to identify. So anything you can do to help support us in better improving our literacy would be very grateful. And many of the shout out to those scheme participants have already done this. Thank you very much. Retailers leveraging the ACCC's authorisation of the member-to-member agreements, a really powerful lever there. Role for government, ministers' engagement to compel scheme participation. As I mentioned earlier, this is another powerful mechanism we'd really like to further develop. Specifying B-cycle accreditation and procurement, contracts and permit documents. Industry associations, if we've got anyone on the call who representing industry associations, there's a great role for you to play there as well, building the requirement to participate in the B-cycle scheme into your membership processes. Collectors and recyclers, there's also a great role for you to be playing. That's with regards to great communication to the BSC team about any free riders who are approaching you for services, and working together, we're a lot more powerful in affecting change there. And then the BSC, obviously, we directly engage with free riders, but also that regular and clear communication to the Minister and the Department on free riding status. Libby, can you move on to the next slide, please?
I think it's worth just talking to the carrots.
Sure. Yes, of course. So it is a little bit of it's a dance, if you like, between those carrots and the non-carrots, which we're referring to here as the sticks. So the member-to-member agreements, all B-cycle participants under the ACCC authorisation, great lever there, and also. We aren't going into it in today's slide, but that research talking about the consumer preference for B-cycle participation, a really powerful piece that you can incorporate into your marketing strategies. And the branding opportunities, use B-cycle in all of those opportunities that you've got to influence consumer behaviour and also your supply network participants. Did you want to add anything onto that, Libby?
I think that was good, Melissa. Just that, we also really strongly promote participation. And so there's a branding opportunity for new members coming into the scheme that we can highlight their engagement and their ESG capabilities.
100%. And if you want to find out more about that, get in contact with me. I can certainly introduce you to our great Director of Communications to look at how we can work together. So finally, that summary piece, identifying free riders in your supply chains, identifying free riders through your procurement strategies, in your government permit applications, then approaching them or getting us involved to help approach them as well. We've got that pro forma letter, which members and participants have previously found helpful. Leveraging your purchasing power, you really can play a very influential role in helping to bring them on board. And we welcome any approaches and just reaching out to me for support or the team for support if you've got any further questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Melissa. That was great. And also, I think if you've got any other assets that we could develop that would help you in taking any of those actions, we'd be really interested to work with you on that. So please stay in touch with us on that matter.
Thanks, Libby.
Quick update on the button battery strategy. The biggest activity that we have in that space at the moment is the button battery home storage container certification process. The intent of this process is to obviously reduce the risk of button battery ingestion or insertion, and also to reduce button battery fires. If you're not aware, the fact that button batteries have such a big terminal on the top side makes them a real danger for children, and also, are an issue for igniting fires and sparks. The purpose of the certification program is to really engage suppliers of containers in this process. We want to facilitate the provision of containers for consumers so that they have a small container that they can collect and store used button batteries safely in the home, and then take them to a button battery, to a B-Cycle accredited drop-off point. The process is really designed to encourage suppliers to design, produce and sell containers that meet the button battery home container requirements that the Button Battery Advisory Group has developed over the last 6 months. The process that we're currently going through, so we've developed the requirements document. We also have developed a scope of work for the certification process, and we've advertised that. We're in the process of receiving proposals at the moment, and over the next few weeks we'll be evaluating those, and we'll then appoint a suitably qualified certification body to manage that process. And then BSC will provide support to successful container suppliers through supporting their commercialisation plans, giving them the certificate, and also promoting containers that have become certified under the program. I thought worth just mentioning also, as we all know, this is such an important issue, and education really is key. And we do have some great assets in this space, more to come in the next year, no doubt. But right now there are some great assets, and you have every reason to download those and use them, but you can also work with us and do co-branding of those. So feel free to reach out to Cara, our Director of Communication and Sustainability, and set up a time to go through those and see how you might use them. Over to you now, Brett, on quick update on the material flows analysis.
Yeah, thanks very much, Libby. Probably we'll just jump straight to the next slide. Thank you. So yeah, BSC is very proud to announce conclusion of a contractual arrangement with Blue Environment to commence a major update in our material flow analysis. This is the third time that we've undertaken this type of research, and it's highly important for us to keep abreast of the movement in markets and also in chemistries that are coming through in batteries that are being imported into the country. For this most recent update in the market analysis, we are focusing very heavily on key import areas, specifically around online sales, embedded batteries, an emerging market, which is the portable energy storage space. These are batteries that are being, they're lithium iron phosphate batteries that are replacing predominantly lead acid type batteries and moving into a larger size, into the 5 to 50 kilo space, and an area that we're very interested to understand how that is expanding. Vapes obviously is a very critical area for us to explore, and within the vape sector, we're hoping to get a better understanding of the differing parts that are being played within the if you like, the legal and illegal import of vapes, and how BSC can address the issues associated with the batteries that are within those products. On top of these areas, we're also looking at various chemistries. As I mentioned, LFP is a really critical chemistry for us to understand, and we're looking to understand how those chemistries are going to enter the market and then permeate the space within the use of batteries in the coming decades. So we're hoping that this, or it is in our intent that these reports will be concluded within to the early part of 2025, and we look forward to sharing the results from this market analysis at that time.
Thanks, Brett.
I'll hand back to Libby.
Just a few other activities wanted to give you an update on. We're in the process of updating the positive charge report, our annual report for financial year 24. This will be published in November, and we'll do some marketing around that, but really pleased to share the improvements that we've made over the past year, and it's really exciting to see the new data, and also, you know, it gives us an opportunity to highlight what have been the key issues that we've been grappling with this year. And I think it sets the scene, you know, for our, you know, future pathway as well, which is great to see. So that's just a heads up that that's coming. A couple of other things. We recently joined UCOBAT. I attended their General Assembly in Basel in Switzerland, and I think this is going to be a really valuable group for us. UCOBAT is the association of all the stewardship schemes in Europe, and they have a number of committees that are looking at statistics and policy and best practices, and so we'll have the opportunity to participate in those and receive the materials. And I think it's just a very important piece for us, because one of the messages that we hear regularly is the importance of harmonisation, and particularly given that Australia is such a small market, for us to harmonise where it makes sense with European terminology, and to really leverage some of the policy decisions that are made there where it suits the Australian environment, just makes so much sense. So UCOBAT membership, really an interesting development. I also attended and was very engaged in the International Battery Recycling Congress in Switzerland. Was one of the plenary speakers, moderated a session, and also facilitated a workshop on the economics of recycling globally, which is a really interesting session. And it's just a really valuable conference all round, and would encourage all of you to go, actually, because if there's any way you can, the discussions around regulation, around changing technologies, and around issues like the battery passport are really important for informing our thinking moving forward. Also, last week presented at the week before now, the Waste Reduction and Recycling Industry Association in South Australia. They had a fundraising lunch, but the topic of the lunch was, in fact, lithium battery safety, and a really important for us to be in front of the waste and recycling sector, given how many fires they're having in this space. And it was really well received. And I think a number of them were actually really surprised and impressed with the amount of work that's going on in this space. So really valuable. Jade also presented to the WA Waste and Resource Recovery Conference. Brett presented to the National Retailer Sustainability Committee, and Jade also presented to the Sustainable Engineers Society. So it's important for us to be making sure that people are aware of our work, but it's also really important for us to hear about the issues that are being experienced on the ground. So all of these activities, I think, have added real value to our thinking. We've also been continuing our advocacy around regulatory reform, meeting with the department, with the interjurisdictional meeting, working group on battery regulation. As I mentioned, we've provided the draft rules to governments, and we've also been engaging with Marsden Jacobs, who's working on some of the regulatory options that government's looking at. And I just forgot to mention one, actually, which was the Product Stewardship Centre for Excellence work on battery stewardship as well. So there's a lot going on in this space right now, and obviously really important for us to be at the centre of that, given our role in this space. We also made a submission to the Circular Economy Ministerial Working Group, and this was a really great initiative that was work that we've been doing with the Product Stewardship Centre for Excellence, but also a number of other schemes: Tyre Stewardship Australia, the Australian Bedding Council, Seamless, and ResiLoop. We put to government, to the Ministerial Advisory Group, what we see as the success factors for stewardship in Australia and how stewardship can add value and assist the government in achieving circular economy outcomes. Combined with that, each of the schemes also put a short summary of outcomes, and you'll just see an image there on the right of the document that BSC put together. If you need to have a quick look at outcomes that we've been achieving, that document is available for download on the website. Also made a presentation to the Productivity Commission, and this was also a shared presentation with five of our stewardship organisations. And I think what we really were able to convey is some of the challenges for stewardship and the delivery of sustainable and circular outcomes. And obviously a big topic of discussion was free riders, particularly the online issues, but also other issues like the challenges around lack of data and at all stages of the supply chain. So challenges around lack of data on recyclability, on cost information and incident data. We also highlighted the lack of insurance as a key issue and impact, and not just the lack of it, but the prohibitive cost, and the fact that it's increasingly difficult to obtain. And so we're really focusing in and ensuring government is aware of that. Inconsistent landfill bans, import controls, and actually export controls as well. So export bans on export of batteries, for example, and also the importance of waste classifications and making sure that we're having consistency around that. I thought it was worth bringing this to your attention because I think these are absolutely central issues for all of us to be talking to government about. And this public inquiry into a circular economy is going on at the moment, and submissions are due 1 November. And even if you just put a short submission and reiterate these key issues to raise, I think it just really strengthens the fact that this is these issues are shared across the whole industry. So obviously, need for free rider regulation, making sure to mention specifically on online marketplaces, enforcement of import standards, and the issues that I've just gone through, and I need to reiterate them, but I just have documented them there, and also I've put the link just under the slide there, just showing where you can find that that inquiry. And as I said, it's just a short, sharp number of points to communicate, and I think it just really helps us communicate to government the importance of these activities. So that's what we've got, and now we'll just open it up to you if you've got any questions.
Libby, I've just changed the settings so that if people are interested, they can raise their hands and speak. There was a bit of a delay, so maybe wait a minute or two just in case people would like to contribute something.
Okay, great. I know it was a lot of information. Hopefully we've conveyed what we needed to convey. You can ask questions now, obviously, but if you have any other questions after the time, you can contact any one of us, and we're happy to get back in touch. All right. Well, on that note, I hope you all have a lovely rest of the day and appreciate the time you've taken to hear about what we've been doing, and look forward to our next one in a month's time. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate the team's support in putting this together.